testers, and welcome to another STP community webinar. My name is James and I'm the event coordinator here at STP. Today we're joined by JoEllen Carter from Olo-ites, and she'll be talking about scaling quality and how you can adapt their framework and techniques to scale quality on your team. A few things to cover before we get started today. A reminder, we have an upcoming webinar on Wednesday, January 13th, 2021 from Manoj Jain at MesoClick, India. The topic is Challenges of Automation at Scale, where he not only discusses the challenges, but also how to overcome them and avoid them. If this sounds intriguing to you, please visit SoftwareTestPro.com to learn more and register for the webinar. STP is looking to fill the 2021 community webinar schedule, and we are, whether you are new to speaking or have been doing it for years, webinars are a great tool to help sharpen your public speaking skills or test out that new content you've been working on. So visit the Software Test Pro website to submit your presentation proposal today. And with that, let's go ahead and get started with JoEllen today, and she will do her introduction. Thank you, JoEllen. We appreciate you, and the floor is all yours.
Thank you, James. Can everyone see my screen?
We can see you.
All right, thank you. Well, I'm happy to be here for these community webinars, and I'm happy all of you are here as well, and I hope you and your families are doing well. As James mentioned, I'm here to talk about how we scaled quality at my company, Olo. My original proposal for this was for the STP conference, and it was about how we scaled quality at Olo in 2019. And here we are at the end of 2020, thank goodness, which has been another year of scaling at Olo. So I've got an even more interesting story to tell you about how we scaled quality. A little bit about myself. My name is JoEllen Carter at Testatious on Twitter. I've been in quality engineering or QA in some capacity since 2003. I'm currently the director of quality engineering at Olo, but I started as a quality advocate 5 years ago. Before Olo, I worked at Pivotal Labs on the Pivotal Tracker team as an agile tester with Lisa Crispin. Yes, that is a blatant name drop there. And before Pivotal, I was at Version 1 as a QA engineer and manager. Version 1 developed an agile software management tool, and I had the good fortune to get lots of agile training from agile leaders while I was there. My formal education is in mechanical engineering, so I am a real engineer. That, however, is ancient history. What I really want to talk about today is the past 2 amazing years at Olo. Before we get going, I want to caution you that I'm using some brightly colored slides in this presentation. You may have heard we're in a pandemic, and I figured we could use a little extra brightness in our day. Hopefully no seizures will be induced. So who is Olo, you ask? Olo stands for online ordering because online ordering used to be 3 words back in the day. You can check out our website, olo.com, to see some of our history. We've been around since 2005, and we provide online ordering for restaurants, mostly fast casual restaurants like the ones you see around your local mall. If you're in the US, you've probably been ordering food through our platform without knowing who we are. And serious moment, all of us at Olo feel very gratified to work for a company that's providing a valuable service to the restaurant industry right now. We are very grateful to be able to provide that. This is from our website. We provide web ordering, mobile ordering, voice ordering, drone delivery, and we're getting ready for whatever is coming next. It's a very exciting industry to be in. As I mentioned, my original proposal for this conference was to talk about our scaling challenges in 2019 and how our approach to quality scaled in parallel. In 2020, we saw the advent of COVID ordering patterns. Restaurants transitioned to higher levels of digital ordering with off-premise consumption. This was a huge change. We became a lifeline for our clients. We had to offer new features and services to support their change in operations. Building those new features and services meant we needed more engineers. Our need increased even more in 2020 than it did in 2019. Our number of major releases, the blue line on that chart, also doubled. So the story that I'm going to tell you today is about how we, the quality engineering group at Olo, scaled to keep up with our rapid engineering growth. Our small quality engineering group had to be conscious about how we supported teams in the midst of this growth and change. We needed to offer consistency and reliability to to balance the rapid pace of development. And we needed to grow as well. We also doubled in size this year. Over the last 2 years, we've taken 3 steps to establish the reliability and consistency our teams needed from us. We defined what we planned to deliver to teams. That was our first step. We called our plan Whole Team Quality. Then we had to actually deliver what we told our engineering leaders we were going to deliver, a reliable, consistent approach to quality and testing amidst growth and change. And finally, we had to teach Whole Team Quality over and over again whenever a new engineer joined a team. I'll walk through how we did this. Step 1, defining. We absolutely did not start from scratch when we defined Whole Team Quality. We built on foundations that everyone here is probably familiar with. We borrowed from Lisa Crispin and Janet Gregory's Whole Team approach to quality. We also borrowed from Alan Page's modern testing principles. We borrowed from Elizabeth Hendrickson's exploratory testing best practices. We borrowed from many leaders in our field and are very grateful to them for making their work available to us. We didn't build something new. We built on what had come before. We combined the best of our industry with our organizational knowledge of Olo and ended up with Whole Team Quality. I believe the most powerful aspect of what we did was give this plan a name. A name made it real. Whole Team Quality is not very original or catchy, I know, but we use the name consistently, and now when we talk about Whole Team Quality, our WTQ, everyone knows what we're talking about. In particular, people know we're talking about a consistent set of practices that they can expect to see at some level on every team at Olo. In 2018, when we kicked off Whole Team Quality, we had 10 separate practices, and we talked about Whole Team Quality as just those practices. It took about a year for us to realize that these 10 practices naturally fell into some distinct categories. We also realized that having 10 static practices was restrictive. It didn't leave us room to add new practices or take away practices that were no longer serving us. So we separated those 10 practices into 4 categories. We call these categories quadrants, not the same quadrants that Lisa and Janet refer to as their agile testing quadrants, but there are Whole Team Quality quadrants, and we sorted our 10 practices into these 4 quadrants: team engagement, visible testing, test scope, and test automation. Let's dig into our team engagement quadrant. One practice in this quadrant that I'm very passionate about, and which is a cornerstone of our program, are Amigo sessions. The concept is, you may know it as 3 Amigo sessions. We didn't want to be prescriptive about the number of people, so we just call it Amigos. The concept is the same, a pre-implementation conversation with key people about the story. We put a quality and testing twist on our Amigo sessions and also talk about how we're going to test that story. We talk about what tests might be good automated test candidates, what environments we might need to set up, what other parts of the system might also need to be tested, and what data needs to be present. We offer a variety of different formats for an Amigo session. We might use example mapping, we might use BDD, we might use an interview format, and some more kind of ad hoc formats that we don't really have a name for. The second practice in our team engagement quadrant is actually 3 practices: pairing, mobbing, and swarming. These are practices that developers are comfortable with for coding, but usually don't consider them for testing. We explicitly adopt them for testing and are also explicit about which ones we use, as well as understanding the differences between these techniques. Which one to choose is a question to answer in an Amigo session. Our third team engagement practice is developer testing. Why do we call that out explicitly? Well, partly because if our QA staff tests everything, we're a bottleneck. But if developers help test, there's no bottleneck and work flows more smoothly. However, we found developers were hesitant to test for a variety of reasons. Perhaps they didn't want to step on our toes because we're supposed to be the testing experts. Perhaps they aren't sure if they'll do it the right way. We address this hesitancy by including developer testing as an expectation in our program. In an Amigo session, we identify developer testing opportunities and plan how to collaborate with them. we build their confidence in their testing abilities. We may also pair, mob, or swarm with them to build their confidence. Finally, we have working agreements in this quadrant. We want teams to choose the practices that will be impactful for their team and commit to them in a working agreement. The working agreement is a living document that we revisit periodically with the team to adjust and tune. The second quadrant that emerged is visible testing. If we want developers to test, we needed to be more transparent about how and what we tested, so we had good models for them to follow. Testing can often be invisible, intuitive work. With visible testing, we have to articulate the strategies we're applying. This helps us become better at our craft as well. This process of making our work visible also gives us thinking time, or as a former colleague, Paul Beckford, used to say, time to have a think about it. Making our work visible also forces us to articulate the why, what, and how of our testing. We get better at talking about testing. And finally, we want to provide visible test results. The more we can share about what has been done, the less likely we are to duplicate work or do unnecessary rework. If we know what has been tested and what hasn't, we can focus future efforts on perceived gaps. This is especially valuable in distributed teams where a lot of communication happens asynchronously and in writing. You might say, JoEllen, it sounds like you don't trust your team and you're adding unnecessary overhead. If we were very prescriptive about this, I would agree with you. However, we aren't prescriptive about how to do this or how much to make visible, just that it be visible. Our intent is to not turn our brains off in either direction, either always providing too much or always providing too little. We want testing to be part of the story of a user story, and we don't want to skip those chapters in the middle. The third quadrant in our whole team quality approach is test scope. This quadrant is about expanding the scope of our testing to more than just functionality. A little bit of history at Olo. Olo started with an outsourced QA model, which focused mostly on functional testing. New engineers also come to Olo with a different QA experience as well, perhaps one that also focused purely on functional testing. We don't want to stop testing after we've verified functionality. We want to discover new behaviors and new insights. So we expose teams to exploratory testing techniques. Exploratory testing is another term that has become part of our ubiquitous testing language at Olo. Another beautiful thing about whole team quality is that we can mix and match practices from the different quadrants. For example, couple exploratory testing with visible testing practices, and we've got a powerful model to build discipline around writing charters and documenting your testing notes. Another synergistic practice here would be pairing mobbing and swarming from the team engagement quadrant. Imagine pairing to exploratory test and making it all visible. So these can all work together as well as alone. Back to our test scope quadrant, a second practice that we put in this quadrant is something we originally called higher level test cycles. Tools like Jira and others are awesome, but sometimes they limit your focus to what's right in front of you, the most urgent thing on the board. We experienced this on our teams, in that when the last story in an epic or when a feature was done, then that epic or feature was considered done. But in many cases, there was still invisible work being done to get ready to flip that feature flag or to monitor a phased rollout. We wanted to make that invisible work visible by adding test tasks or stories so that they show up on a team's board and are included in sprint commitments. Compliance testing also falls into this category of often invisible work. Compliance tests are cross-cutting concerns like security, browser compatibility, or mobile device compatibility. We identify and plan this work and make it visible and be accountable for getting it done as part of the team's work. Our final quadrant is test automation. If you're the arguing type, you might argue that all of these other areas wouldn't be needed if we had adequate test automation. And I would agree with you that we need to increase our automated test coverage. We probably all do. However, I take the position that the other three quadrants can actually be a microcosm within test automation. As part of test automation, we also want team engagement. We want visibility of those tests, and we want to increase the scope of those tests. In my opinion, it's difficult to be really good in all four quadrants, and we need to be really good to support our clients. So to support that idea of being really good, we definitively split the role of QA engineer into two distinct roles: a quality advocate with primary responsibility for those first three quadrants, and a software engineer and test with primary responsibility for this quadrant. This role differentiation allows us to scale test automation without sacrificing the values in the other quadrants. We apply all of those other practices, working agreements, amigo sessions, team engagement, and add in accountability for helping the team meet automated test coverage and reliability goals. Our final practice in this quadrant that helped us scale was to have common frameworks. We started the year with various test automation frameworks. Some didn't provide full coverage because the experts had moved on to different teams, and so the automated test coverage was neglected. We began to promote common frameworks that could be used by multiple teams, and we were also able to provide expert guidance in their use. These frameworks were built by our talented test engineering manager, Brian Kitchener, and are well respected within our engineering organization and have a high level of adoption. One of my favorite new frameworks is our framework for API testing called Okapi, or also Olo-ites API. We learned that an Okapi is an animal. It's a giraffe-zebra hybrid, and it's the giraffe's closest relative. She's pretty cute, isn't she? We ended up with a fantastic program, Whole Team Quality. We loved it. It embodied all of the things we valued, and we had our own language around it. However, we found ourselves in a situation where quality advocates, or SCTs, on a team still felt like a lone wolf. We weren't seeing the impact that we wanted. We had these brilliant ideas and lofty goals, but still felt like we were pushing mud uphill on some teams. We surmised that as we had grown, our communication paths had not scaled with us. We valued direct one-on-one communication, but this didn't work well with numerous distributed team members. We had a network of pairwise communication going on that was like a giant game of telephone tag. We replaced these one-on-one conversations with a single, small group conversation in a venue we called a squad. These squads aren't traditional Scrum squads. Our squads provide a venue for an ongoing, central conversation about quality and testing. Everyone involved in setting priorities and making delivery commitments are involved. Most squads have a QA manager to facilitate the squad meetings, so we have a consistent model that we followed across all the teams. And know that not every team has both a quality advocate and an SCT. Some have one or the other, some have both, some have none, and we share those responsibilities. We include the dev manager and product manager in the whole team quality squad, and some squads also include developers. We are consistently flexible when we engage with teams about the composition of the squad. We articulate our values, establish guidelines and guardrails, but the details are very much up to the team and what is going to fit for them. Squad composition is an area where teams exercise their autonomy. So what do squads actually do? Squads have regular check-ins about quality and testing. They are not status updates. They are strategic in nature. Some teams have them on a weekly basis. Some teams have them on a bi-weekly basis, again, giving the teams some autonomy over that schedule. But these check-ins are about making work visible, prioritizing upcoming quality and testing work. Perhaps some of those higher level test cycles are identified, as well as reviewing OKRs and metrics. I haven't mentioned OKRs before. Those are another presentation, so we're not going there today. But squads are the place where we talk about our OKR progress and review metrics, as well as current and future quality initiatives. This is an agenda from a recent whole team quality squad check-in. This team calls it a sync. We use a tool called Sprintlio. Sprintlio is actually a retrospective tool that we adopted for meeting agendas and notes. You can see this team is talking about OKRs, about automated test coverage, as well as some engineering-wide activities that may impact delivery. I've got to shout out to this team. Check out over on the far right side at the bottom. They're setting up a quality health dashboard. This isn't something that's a part of whole team quality, but it certainly is within the guardrails. It's about visible testing and team engagement. If it's successful and impactful, we might incorporate this practice into one of our whole team quality quadrants and promote it across all of our teams. Notice that they're also celebrating an accomplishment around metrics, defects created versus resolved. So the squad is a place to acknowledge those achievements as well. The last aspect of scaling quality that contributed to our success is teaching. How do we teach our quadrants and practices when we have new engineers joining teams on a weekly basis? As you can imagine, having those new people join with their own history and their own stories about quality can make sharing our narrative somewhat challenging. Initially, we developed an immersion experience with the team that we called a boot camp. These boot camps did not involve push-ups or yelling or any physical exertion whatsoever. Boot camp was a 1 to 2 hour daily session over a 2-week period to talk about our quadrants and practice those new skills together. We did this at a team level, and we stayed with that team level boot camp for about a year and put all of our existing teams through a boot camp. We're talking about just a handful of teams at that point. As new teams or teams with significant changes emerged, we would hold a mini boot camp with them. However, as our growth escalated, we couldn't keep up with the team level boot camp. We didn't have the staff and they didn't have the time. So we made several changes to the format. First, we took out the team aspects and delivered foundational training in what we called a new hire whole team quality boot camp. This was part of a wider engineering initiative to improve our onboarding for new hires. These new hire boot camps are now a part of onboarding for all new hires since October of this year. And I think at the end of this week, we'll have had everyone go through some level of boot camp. We do plan to go back and revisit our team level boot camps in the near future as our hiring slows down, but we haven't made a decision about that yet. Secondly, we recruited quality advocates and SETs to facilitate these hands-on sessions. And thirdly, we significantly changed the boot camp format. Previously, we had asked for that 1 to 2 hours per day from a team for a 2-week boot camp. This time commitment wasn't practical for new hires who weren't yet on a team, and we also removed some of the aspects that were very team-oriented as far as the working agreement. So we recorded a set of short videos about each quadrant and asked new engineers to watch that video. Then we would invite them to a small group session with other new hires to practice new skills. These small group sessions are amazing. Our quality advocates and SETs get to connect with new team members as well as share their love of testing. I often get reports that these are favorite sessions to attend. However, after boot camp, we found that new hires would join a team and not be quite sure of how to contribute to quality and testing on that team. So missing that team aspect of the team level boot camp. But we also saw a gap in our whole team quality training around roles and workflow. I talked earlier about how we separated the quality advocate and SET roles. We further divided these roles so that new team members, new developers, could easily identify how they were expected to contribute to quality. We define these as a tester. Could be any member of an engineering team who's doing testing activities. It could be a quality advocate, could be an engineering manager, could be a product manager, could be a developer, could be an SET. The quality advocate, we wanted to be accountable for leading the testing approach and quality practices on the team through planning, helping drive process improvements, being a quality coach to testers in testing skills and practices, and also contributing as a tester. Similarly, on the automated test side, We defined an automated test writer as anyone who scripts an automated test. Similar to the tester role, this could be any member of the engineering team. So we're really opening the door to other members of the team contributing to both testing and automated test writing. We want the software engineer and test who's supporting a team to be primarily responsible providing that team with the information and tools necessary to write those tests using our common frameworks that we talked about earlier. They provide training, tool enhancements, and they also contribute as an automated test writer. Interestingly enough, we got some friction from our own staff about these role definitions. We had quality advocates who thought we were telling them they couldn't test anymore. We had software engineers in test who thought we were telling them all they could do was write scripts. So we're still kind of refining this workflow part of bootcamp to emphasize that these are roles, not jobs, and that we can move fluidly between these roles. When we talk about these roles, we also talk about them at different levels and in different spheres of influence. These are some of our workflow expectations for a quality advocate at different levels. We have a product team level where we want them to provide that quality coaching, to participate in the team ceremonies, to have visible plans that are strategic in nature. The squad level, we want them to participate in those check-ins, to help prioritize, to make their work visible. At an epic feature level, we want them to work on test plans, to make that work visible, and to include that work in the work of the team during sprint planning. And finally, at a story level, we want them to participate in those Amigo sessions to make their testing visible and to feed a test automation pipeline as well. So that's our scaling story so far. We defined a program, we delivered the program, we taught the program, and we continue to iterate on the program. It's not the end of our story by any means. We have big goals for 2021. We want to further develop that tester as craftsperson concept, help our quality advocates grow as leaders and coaches, revisit the team bootcamp model. So many things we want to do while continuing to grow. We feel ready for more growth. We've got a good handle on the keys to scaling successfully. We will continue to articulate our values. We will continue to execute consistently to demonstrate those values. We'll continue to own our process as a team to have every member of our team, of our QE staff, to participate in delivering our program. And finally, we'll share our message with all of the engineers on our staff. I hope you find these keys helpful as you contemplate your own growth strategies. That's all I've got for today. One little reminder, as you're ordering your next meal online, remember that restaurants get a greater portion of your dollars if you order directly from the restaurant. Thank you for your time and attention. I'd love to answer your questions.
Right on. Thank you so much, JoEllen. And I obviously order a lot of food because I don't like to cook. So that's some good advice. So we do have some questions. First one is, what's the difference between SET and quality advocate?
That's a great question. So again, the quality advocate, we expect to be more engaged on the product side, be that customer representative, be responsible for those first three quadrants, the team engagement, visible testing, and test scope, while the SET focus is primarily on test automation. And we do hire SETs who are full software engineers.
Perfect. Awesome. Next question, how do you do compliance testing?
That varies depending on the team and what their needs are, but definitely around security testing, we have penetration testers that we pull in when that's needed. Other security aspects we have a strategy around API testing and certain security concerns we have around there. And those are typically guidelines that we publish, and then we incorporate those into our test plans for particular features and call those out as specific tests or test cycles that we may need to cover those concerns. Other areas where that comes in would be, as I mentioned in the presentation, browser compatibility. We do have, like most software teams have our supported browsers and a strategy for testing those, both manually and with automated tests.
Awesome. Next question. Are your automation frameworks homegrown?
They are. Most, the ones that we have right now are API testing framework was written in C#. We also have some test data management tools that are written in C# that are also owned by our test engineering team. Our load testing framework, we currently use K6, but we have some custom frameworks, some add-ons to that as far as being able to turn services off and on, just some different hooks into our system to make those tests run more efficiently.
Perfect. Next question. Do you have challenges with your developers testing? Any pushback because they feel it's not their job?
Of course we do. Of course we do. It does vary from team to team. And I think a lot of it does stem to that thing I mentioned in my presentation is they're not sure they're going to do it right. So we do try to provide support to them in that. And some teams are under, delivery pressure, and that maybe those developers, can engage in testing at another time when there's not that pressure. So we do try to be flexible and not have a kind of one size fits all approach, but definitely take in the dynamics of the team and adjust as needed to that.
Perfect. Next question. What is your QA tech stack?
It's QA tech stack. I guess maybe that means automated test stack.
I believe so.
So again, homegrown frameworks written in C#. For our API, that's a C# framework. For our UI tests, we use a Selenium model called Selenium Fluent. And we're migrating away from some other frameworks. As I mentioned, we had done some experimentation with Test Cafe and Cypress, WebDriver IO. We are moving away from those and moving everything into this Selenium Fluent framework.
Got it. How many squads do you have?
Oh, number of squads. We have some squads that serve multiple teams. So depending, if there's like a common domain and they're working together to deliver a product or feature or service, then we'll have one squad so that we can have that one conversation. Current number of squads, I'd say we have probably, 15 squads right now.
Okay, right on. This one's a little long, so bear with me. With your quality engineering department taking the whole team quality approach, do you think your company would eliminate the quality engineering department completely or rely solely on the developers and automation to test your application?
Oh, that is a big question. I don't know. We certainly think we're providing value and focus on quality and testing. We're lucky to have the support of our engineering leadership in that, and that we see ourselves as a force multiplier on a team. And we take that to heart and do try to, again, not just test, but provide all of those other things that you see in our whole team quality program.
Perfect. How large is the QA team now versus when Olo initially started?
Well, when I started, there were 5 of us. So we were fairly small, and that was now we are close to, we've got, let's see, we did double in size this year. We are approaching 40 in our QA department.
Very good, nice. This one's follow-up to an earlier question. It says typical number of people on a squad.
Typical number, well, we do have those roles. We do have a manager right now who's facilitating those squads while we're rolling them out and trying to be consistent about how we approach those. If a team has a quality advocate and an SET, they are both in there. Some teams don't. And then we definitely include the dev manager and the product manager. And some teams have a kind of developer rotation as far as bringing developers in for certain conversations or having them rotate through it. So it could be as few as 3, could be as many as 5 or 6.
Okay.
And again, we do have, I was just going to add up, we do have some squads that serve multiple teams. So those may have multiple dev managers, multiple product managers in there as well.
Makes sense. All right, next question. When you speak of visibility, can you talk about the level of documentation your team does?
Sure, so it varies by team. Again, we try to find something that's going to work for that team. We do have a test case management tool that integrates with Jira, which is offered as a tool, but we aren't prescriptive that everyone use that tool. We also have some test cases documented in Google Sheets. We have some teams that write them directly in the ticket in Jira. So depending on how they're talking about testing and how they're planning to test, they may document results in a different way. The most common way that I see it done is in comments in Jira tickets. So being very visible about this is what I tested, this is what it looked like when I tested in this environment, and keeping that running kind of commentary in the ticket so that it tells a story along with the user story.
Okay. Next question. Do the advocates and SETs report to the same center of excellence or separate? How do they stay aligned?
That's a great question because we recently made a change there. We did have quality advocates report to a QA manager, SETs report into a test engineering manager. We've recently switched to a mixed reporting model where both quality advocates and SETs report into the same manager who is running those squads. And we're hoping it will provide a little more alignment, more collaboration between the quality advocate and the SET to make sure we're choosing the high value test, that we're making time for those automation activities, and making sure we're providing the coverage that the team needs.
Okay. Janet says, such great content, can't type notes fast enough. So I just want to let Janet know that we are recording it. She'll be able to rewatch this, including all of the Q&A. But she does have one question. Any thoughts about a transcript?
About what?
A transcript.
For this presentation?
I don't know, maybe. I thought maybe that was more regarding the contents, but yes. Maybe send us your slides.
I can send slides for sure, yeah.
Perfect, and then yeah, we'll upload that with the recording, and then they'll be able to see that at the website. We have another question. What are some key things you look for when interviewing testers?
Well, we recently did quite a bit of that. So what I look for is philosophical alignment and just energy around some of our values. I think one thing Whole Team Quality helped us do was really distill our values into those 4 quadrants around team engagement, test scope, visible testing, and test automation. So I look for someone who has those same values.
Of course, yes, definitely. Let's see. In your WTQ squad slide, it lists a QE manager. What does the QE manager do that the quality advocate and SET does not do?
That's a great question. Right now, the QE manager is providing consistency in that squad kind of format across multiple teams, whereas a quality advocate who's on one team might not know what another team is doing, and we might have, just different ways of doing things. We do anticipate moving that leadership of the squad to the quality advocate once we have a good model established.
Perfect, and I think that's it for questions today. Thank you so much. We appreciate everything you did. It was a great presentation, great Q&A. So thank you, we really appreciate it.
Well, thank you. I'm glad everyone enjoyed it.
So everyone, that ends our presentation today. And before we go, just a reminder, our next webinar will take place Wednesday, January 13th, 2021 at noon Eastern. Manoj Jain will be giving a presentation on the challenges of automation, so visit SoftwareTestPro.com to sign up for the webinar. Also, if you'd like to be considered for a webinar or have a great idea for a testing topic, visit SoftwareTestPro.com to submit your proposal. And thank you everyone who joined today and JoEllen for a great presentation. Have a great holiday season, stay safe, and we'll see everyone in 2021.